Jake Miller looked out the window of the USS Independence as the alien planet grew larger before them. The blue and purple world of Zephyria sparkled with strange lights. After 3 months of travel through space, they had finally arrived at the home of the most powerful alien race in this part of the galaxy. "Are you ready for this, Commander?" Dr. Lisa Carter asked as she walked up beside him. She was the team's expert on alien life forms. Her job was to help them understand the Zephyrians better. Jake nodded. "As ready as anyone can be for first contact with an alien queen." He turned away from the window and looked at his small team. Captain Ryan Woods was checking his weapons one more time. Ambassador Kate Johnson was reading her notes about Zephyrian culture. These 3 people were the only backup he had on this mission. The Zephyrians had contacted Earth 6 months ago. Their message was simple but clear. "Send your best diplomat. Our queen will decide if humans are worth knowing. No threats, no demands. Just a cold invitation that could change everything for humanity." The ship's computer spoke in a calm voice. "Approaching Zephyrian space dock. Prepare for landing." Jake felt his heart beat faster. Everything Earth had worked for depended on the next few days. If this went wrong, humanity might find itself at war with beings far more advanced than them. If it went right, they could gain a powerful ally among the stars. The landing was smooth. As they stepped off their ship, Jake saw the Zephyrian spaceport for the first time. It was huge, made of some kind of crystal that seemed to glow from within. Tall, graceful beings moved around the area. The Zephyrians looked almost human, but their skin had a slight blue tint and their eyes were larger and darker than human eyes. A group of Zephyrian guards met them at the ship. The leader stepped forward and spoke in perfect English. "I am Guard Captain Vex. You will follow me to the Queen's palace. Do not speak unless spoken to. Do not touch anything. Do not look directly at the Queen until she gives permission." Jake's team followed the guards through the Crystal City. Everything was beautiful but cold. The buildings rose high into the sky like frozen music. Other Zephyrians stopped to stare at the humans as they passed. Some looked curious. Others looked like they wanted the humans to leave immediately. The palace was the most amazing building Jake had ever seen. It was made entirely of blue crystal that seemed to sing when the wind touched it. Inside, the halls were wide and tall. Strange lights floated in the air without any visible source. Everything was perfect, clean, and somehow lifeless. They entered a huge throne room. At the far end sat Queen Lyrelai on a throne made of white crystal. She was tall even for a Zephyrian, with long silver hair and eyes that seemed to see everything. She wore robes that sparkled like starlight. Jake had seen pictures, but seeing her in person was different. She looked like she could destroy worlds with a thought. "Approach," the Queen said. Her voice was clear and cold. Jake walked forward with his team behind him. When they were about 20 feet from the throne, Guard Captain Vex held up his hand for them to stop. "I am Commander Jake Miller of Earth," Jake said, trying to keep his voice steady. "We come in peace, hoping to build friendship between our peoples." Queen Lyrelai studied him for a long moment. "I have heard about humans. You are a young race, weak. Your technology is simple. Your lifespans are short. Tell me, Commander Jake Miller, why should the Zephyrian Empire care about Earth?" The question was direct and harsh. Jake had prepared for this. "Your Majesty, humans may be young, but we learn fast. We may be weak in body, but we are strong in spirit. Our technology may be simple, but we use it well. Our lives may be short, but we make them count." Something flickered in the Queen's dark eyes. Interesting words. But words are easy. Actions matter more. She gestured to one of her advisors. "Tell them about the energy problem." The advisor stepped forward. "Our palace's main power grid has been acting strangely for days. Our best engineers cannot find the cause. The backup systems keep failing." Jake looked at Dr. Lisa Carter. She nodded slightly. "May I examine the problem, Your Majesty?" Jake asked. Queen Lyrelai tilted her head. "You think you can solve what our experts cannot?" "I would like to try," Jake said simply. The Queen was quiet for a moment. Then she smiled, but it was not a warm smile. "Very well. Show me what humans can do." They led Jake and his team to a room full of strange machinery. Everything was smooth and elegant, but Jake could hear odd sounds coming from some of the equipment. Dr. Lisa Carter took out her scanner and began checking the area. "The energy readings are all wrong," she said quietly to Jake. "But I think I know what the problem might." Jake looked at the beautiful, complex machines. Then he got down on his hands and knees and crawled under one of the main units. Captain Ryan Woods looked nervous. Ambassador Kate Johnson whispered, "What are you doing?" Jake found what he was looking for. A small piece of metal had come loose and was touching two parts that should not connect. It was such a simple problem that the Zephyrian engineers had looked right past it. Jake pulled out a basic tool from his kit and fixed the connection. The strange sound stopped. The lights in the room became brighter and steadier. Jake crawled out from under the machine, his uniform dirty but his face calm. "It was just a loose connection, Your Majesty." Queen Lirali stared at him. Her advisors looked shocked. "You fixed it," she said slowly. "Sometimes the simplest answer is the right one," Jake replied. For the first time since they arrived, Queen Lirali looked truly interested in the human standing before her. She studied Jake with new attention as if seeing him for the first time. "Perhaps," she said quietly, "there is more to humans than I thought." 3 days had passed since Jake fixed the palace's power problem. The Zephyrian engineers were still talking about how a human had solved what they could not. Queen Lirali had given the human team rooms in the palace and asked them to stay longer than planned. Jake was reading reports from Earth when a guard knocked on his door. "The Queen requests your presence in her private study," the guard said. This was the 4th time this week that Queen Lirali had asked to meet with Jake alone. Each time she said it was for diplomatic talks. But Jake was starting to wonder if there was something else going on. The Queen's private study was smaller than the throne room, but just as beautiful. Books and data crystals lined the walls. Large windows looked out over the Crystal City. Queen Lirali stood by one of these windows, watching her people go about their daily lives. "Come in, Jake Miller," she said without turning around. Jake noticed she had started using his first name instead of his title. "Your Majesty," Jake said, bowing slightly. "I have been thinking about what you said the first day," Queen Lirali said, finally turning to face him. "About humans making their short lives count. What did you mean by that?" Jake had not expected this question. "Well, Your Majesty, humans know we do not live as long as other races, so we try to make every day matter. We love deeply. We fight for what we believe in. And we try to leave the world better than we found it." The Queen moved to her desk and sat down. "Tell me about love," she said simply. Jake felt surprised. Love was not something he had expected to discuss with an alien queen. Love is hard to explain. It is when you care about someone more than yourself. When their happiness becomes more important than your own happiness. "This sounds inefficient," Queen Lirali said, but her voice was curious, not critical. "Why would anyone put another person's needs first?" "Because it makes us stronger," Jake said. "When humans love someone, we will do anything to protect them. We become braver, more creative, more determined. Love does not make us weak. It makes us powerful in ways that are hard to measure." Queen Lirali leaned forward in her chair. "On Zephyria, marriages are arranged for political reasons. Couples are matched based on genetics and social status. Personal feelings are not considered important. But you are saying humans choose their partners based on emotions?" "Yes," Jake said. "We believe that choosing who to love is one of the most important freedoms a person can have." "Freedom," the Queen repeated the word slowly. "Another human concept I do not fully understand. Explain this to me." Jake spent the next hour talking about human ideas of freedom and choice. He told her about how humans could choose their jobs, their homes, their beliefs. He explained how humans could disagree with their leaders and even vote to change them. Queen Lirali listened to every word. She asked many questions. Some of them surprised Jake with how deep they were. "Do humans ever make wrong choices?" she asked. "All the time," Jake admitted. "But we learn from our mistakes. Making bad choices is how we grow wiser. On Zephyria, wrong choices are not allowed," the Queen said. "Everything is planned and controlled to prevent errors." "That sounds very safe," Jake said carefully. "But it also sounds like it might be lonely." Something changed in Queen Lirali's expression. For just a moment she looked sad. "Yes," she said quietly. "It can be very lonely." The next day, Queen Lirali asked Jake to join her for the evening meal. This was unusual because Zephyrian queens usually ate alone. Captain Ryan Woods was worried. "This is not normal protocol," Ryan said to Jake before the dinner. "I do not like how much time she is spending with you." "She is just curious about human culture," Jake replied. "This is good for our mission." But Jake was starting to wonder if Ryan was right to be concerned. During dinner, Queen Lyrelay asked him about human art, music, and entertainment. She wanted to know about human humor and why humans laughed. Laughter is how we deal with difficult situations, Jake explained. When something is scary or sad, sometimes we laugh to feel better. Show me, Queen Lyrelay said. Jake felt nervous. Show you what, Your Majesty? Show me human humor. Make me laugh. Jake thought for a moment, then told her a simple joke about a human who got lost in space and asked an alien for directions. The alien pointed in every direction at once and said, "That way." Queen Lyrelay did not laugh, but she tilted her head thoughtfully. "I do not understand why this is funny." "It is funny because it is unexpected," Jake said. The alien was not helpful at all, but he thought he was being very helpful. "Ah," Queen Lyrelay said. "So humor comes from surprise and from understanding that others see things differently." "Exactly," Jake said, impressed by how quickly she understood. Dr. Lisa Carter was watching all of this with growing concern. That night she came to Jake's room. "Jake, I need to tell you something," she said. "I have been monitoring the Queen's biological responses during your meetings." "You have been spying on her?" Jake asked, shocked. "Not spying. Observing. It is my job to understand alien behavior." Dr. Carter sat down and looked serious. "Jake, her brain patterns show something I have never seen in a Zephyrian before." "What?" "Emotional attachment. The Queen is developing feelings for you." Jake felt his heart skip a beat. "That is impossible. She is just interested in human culture." "No, Jake, this is more than curiosity. Her body language, her vocal patterns, the way she looks at you, all the signs point to romantic interest." Jake stood up and walked to the window. Outside he could see Zephyrian guards patrolling the palace grounds. "Even if you are right, what am I supposed to do about it?" "She is an alien queen. I am just a human diplomat." "I do not know," Dr. Carter said honestly, "but I think you need to be very careful. If she is developing feelings for you, this could change everything about our mission." The next morning, Queen Lyrelay surprised everyone by asking Jake to walk with her in the palace gardens. The gardens were beautiful, full of plants that sparkled like jewels and made soft musical sounds when the wind touched them. "I have been thinking about our conversations," Queen Lyrelay said as they walked along a crystal path. "You have taught me things about humans that I did not expect to learn." "Such as?" Jake asked. "That strength can come from vulnerability. That freedom can be more valuable than safety. That choosing to care about someone can make you more powerful, not less." They stopped walking near a fountain made of singing crystal. Queen Lyrelay turned to face Jake directly. "Jake Miller," she said, and her voice was different than he had ever heard it before. Softer, less formal. "I want to ask you something that I have never asked anyone before." "What is it, Your Majesty?" Queen Lyrelay was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her words changed everything. "What does it feel like to be happy?" Jake stared at Queen Lyrelay, trying to understand what she had just asked him. "What does it feel like to be happy?" The question hung in the air between them like something precious and fragile. "Your Majesty," Jake said carefully, "are you saying that you have never been happy?" Queen Lyrelay looked away, toward the singing fountain. "Zephyrians do not experience emotions the way humans do. We feel satisfaction when we complete tasks. We feel pride when we achieve goals. But happiness, joy, these are foreign concepts to us." Jake felt a deep sadness for her. "Happiness it is like sunlight warming your face. It is the feeling you get when something wonderful and unexpected happens. It is what you feel when you are with people you care about." "People you care about," Queen Lyrelay repeated slowly. "Like the feeling I have been experiencing when I talk with you." Jake's heart started beating faster. Dr. Carter had been right. The Queen was developing feelings for him. "Your Majesty, I do not answer now," Queen Lyrelay said quickly. "Tonight there will be a great dinner. Representatives from many worlds will be here. The Andromedan Collective, the Silicon-based Arcarians, and others. I must attend to my duties as Queen." She walked away, leaving Jake standing alone by the fountain, his mind spinning with confusion and worry. That evening, the palace's great dining hall was filled with beings from across the galaxy. Jake had never seen so many different alien species in one place. The Andromedans looked like tall, graceful trees with silver bark. The Arcarians were living rocks that moved and spoke. There were others too, beings of pure energy, creatures that looked like walking oceans and races Jake could not even begin to describe. Jake sat with his team at one of the side tables. Captain Ryan Woods kept checking his weapon, even though weapons were not allowed at the dinner. Ambassador Kate Johnson was taking notes on everything she saw. Dr. Lisa Carter was scanning the room with her instruments. "The Queen looks different tonight," Dr. Carter whispered to Jake. Jake looked toward the head table where Queen Lyralee sat on her crystal throne. She did look different. Instead of her usual cold, distant expression, she seemed nervous. Her hands moved restlessly and she kept looking toward Jake's table. "Something is wrong," Captain Ryan Woods said quietly. "I can feel it." The dinner began with speeches from various alien ambassadors. Each one talked about trade agreements, territory disputes, and other political matters. It was all very formal and boring. Jake found his attention drifting to Queen Lyralee, who seemed to be paying no attention to the speeches at all. Finally, it was Queen Lyralee's turn to speak. She stood up slowly and the entire hall fell silent. Even the floating lights seemed to dim, as if they were waiting to hear what she would say. "Honored guests," Queen Lyralee began, her voice carrying clearly across the large room. "You have come here to discuss matters of politics and trade. These are important things, but tonight I wish to speak of something else." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Whatever the Queen was about to say, he had a feeling it was going to change everything. For centuries, the Zephyrian Empire has been the most powerful force in this sector of the galaxy. Queen Lyralee continued. "We have achieved this through careful planning, strict control, and logical thinking. We have never allowed emotions to influence our decisions." The alien ambassadors listened with interest. This sounded like a normal political speech. "But recently," Queen Lyralee said, "I have learned something new. I have learned about a species that finds strength in emotion. A species that chooses love over logic. A species that values freedom more than safety." Jake's mouth went dry. She was talking about humans. About him. "This species has taught me that there are different kinds of power," Queen Lyralee said, her voice growing stronger. "There is the power to control others, and there is the power to inspire them. There is the power to command obedience, and there is the power to earn loyalty." The Queen's advisors were looking confused. This was not the speech they had expected their Queen to give. "I have studied many species and their customs," Queen Lyralee said, turning to look directly at Jake. "But only one has shown me what it truly means to live with purpose, compassion, and strength." Jake felt like he could not breathe. Every eye in the room was now looking at him. "Commander Jake Miller of Earth," Queen Lyralee said, her voice ringing with certainty, "I want you as my husband." The silence that followed was complete and terrifying. Jake could hear his own heartbeat. He could see the shock on the faces of the alien ambassadors. The Andromedan representative actually dropped the crystal cup he was holding. Captain Ryan Woods started to reach for his weapon, but Jake grabbed his arm to stop him. Ambassador Kate Johnson's mouth was hanging open. Dr. Lisa Carter looked like she had been struck by lightning. The alien ambassadors began talking all at once. Some were shocked, some were angry. Some seemed excited by this unexpected development. The Arcarian representative's rocky body was actually changing colors, which Jake had heard was a sign of extreme emotion in their species. Queen Lyralee's own advisors looked horrified. One of them, an elderly Zephyrian with silver robes, stood up quickly. "Your Majesty," he said in a voice that shook with anger, "this is completely unacceptable. You cannot marry an alien. It goes against everything our society stands for." "I am the Queen," Queen Lyralee replied calmly. "I can do whatever I choose to do." "Not this," another advisor said. "The noble families will never accept it. The people will revolt." Queen Lyralee ignored them and continued looking at Jake. "Well, Commander Jake Miller, what is your answer?" Jake stood up slowly, his legs feeling weak. Every being in the room was staring at him, waiting to see what he would say. The weight of Earth's future, of human-alien relations, of everything he had worked for, pressed down on him like a mountain. "Your Majesty," Jake said, his voice somehow staying steady, "may I have a moment to speak with you privately?" "No," the elderly advisor said quickly. "This has gone far enough. Guards, escort the humans back to their ship immediately." "The guards take orders from me, not from you," Queen Lyralee said sharply. "Commander Miller, we will speak privately." As they left the dining hall, Jake could hear the explosion of voices behind them. Alien ambassadors were demanding explanations. Zephyrian nobles were arguing with each other. His own team was probably in shock. Queen Lyra led him to a small balcony overlooking the Crystal City. The lights of the city sparkled below them like stars that had fallen to Earth. "You are surprised," Queen Lyra said. "That is an understatement." "Your Majesty," Jake replied. "I know this creates problems," Queen Lyra said. "For you, for your people, for my people. But I also know that I have never felt anything like what I feel when I am with you. You have shown me what it means to be alive, not just to exist." Jake looked into her dark eyes and saw something he had never seen there before. Vulnerability. This powerful alien queen, who could destroy worlds with a command, was standing before him like a woman who had just discovered what it meant to have a heart. "Your Majesty," Jake said gently, "what you are feeling is real. But marriage between our species, the political implications alone could start wars. Or it could prevent them," Queen Lyra said. "An alliance between Earth and Zephyria would make both our peoples stronger." Jake knew she was right about that. But he also knew that accepting her proposal for political reasons would be wrong. If he was going to say yes, it would have to be for the right reasons. The question was, what were the right reasons? And did he have feelings for her too? Jake stood on the balcony with Queen Lyra, the weight of her proposal heavy between them. Before he could answer, Captain Ryan Woods burst through the door. "Jake, we need to leave now," Ryan said urgently. "The communication systems are going crazy. Earth Command is demanding answers. Half the alien ambassadors are calling this an act of war, and the other half think it is some kind of trick." Jake turned to Queen Lyra. "I need time to think about this, Your Majesty." "Of course," she said, but Jake could see disappointment in her eyes. "But do not take too long. My advisors are already planning ways to make this proposal disappear forever." The next morning, Jake woke up to find 3 emergency messages from Earth waiting for him. The first was from the President himself, demanding an immediate explanation. The second was from the military, ordering him to return to Earth at once. The third was from the Diplomatic Corps, asking if he had lost his mind. Dr. Lisa Carter came to his room with bad news. "Jake, I have been monitoring communications across the galaxy. News of the Queen's proposal has spread everywhere. Some species think this could be the start of a new age of cooperation between races. Others think humans are trying to take over the Zephyrian Empire through marriage. What do you think?" Jake asked. "I think Queen Lyra is serious about her feelings," Dr. Carter said. "But I also think she does not understand how complicated this makes everything." Ambassador Kate Johnson arrived with even worse news. "The Zephyrian noble families are meeting in emergency session," she reported. "They are talking about declaring the Queen unfit to rule. Some of them think humans have used some kind of mind control on her." Jake rubbed his tired eyes. "This is getting out of hand." "It is about to get worse," Kate said. "The Queen has announced that you must face the traditional trials to prove you are worthy of marrying her." "What trials?" Jake asked. "No one will tell me," Kate admitted. "But from what I can gather, they are dangerous. Very dangerous." That afternoon, Queen Lyra summoned Jake to the throne room. This time, the room was packed with Zephyrian nobles, advisors, and military leaders. They all looked angry. "Jake Miller," Queen Lyra said formally, "the noble families have demanded that you prove your worthiness through the ancient trials. If you refuse, you must leave Zephyria immediately and never return." "And if I accept?" Jake asked. An elderly noble stepped forward. "If you accept and fail, you die. If you accept and succeed, you will have earned the right to marry our queen. But," he added with a cruel smile, "no alien has ever survived the trials." Jake looked around the room. Every Zephyrian face showed the same expression. They expected him to refuse and leave in shame. They thought humans were too weak to face their challenges. "What exactly are these trials?" Jake asked. 3 tests, Queen Lyra explained, and Jake could hear worry in her voice. "The trial of strength, where you must defeat our greatest warrior. The trial of wisdom, where you must solve an ancient puzzle that has stumped our best minds for centuries. And the trial of heart, where you must prove that your feelings are real and pure." Jake thought about this. The first trial sounded impossible. Humans were not as physically strong as Zephyrians. The second trial might be doable, depending on what kind of puzzle it was. The third trial was a mystery. "If I refuse?" Jake asked. "Then we forget this foolishness and return to normal diplomatic relations." the elderly noble said quickly. Jake looked at Queen Lyrelei. She was trying to keep her expression neutral, but he could see the hope and fear in her eyes. She wanted him to accept the trials, but she was also terrified that he would die trying. I need to discuss this with my team, Jake said. You have until sunset, Queen Lyrelei said. Choose wisely. Back in their rooms, Jake's team was divided. This is insane, Captain Ryan Wood said. You could get killed. For what? An alien marriage that might not even be legal under Earth law? Actually, Ambassador Kate Johnson said thoughtfully, a marriage alliance with the Zephyrian Empire would be incredibly valuable for Earth. It would give us protection, access to their technology, and a major voice in galactic politics. You cannot be serious, Ryan said. You want Jake to risk his life for a political deal? I want Jake to consider all the options, Kate replied. Dr. Lisa Carter had been quiet during this argument. Finally, she spoke up. Jake, forget about politics for a moment. How do you feel about Queen Lyrelei? The question caught Jake off guard. In all the chaos, he had not really stopped to examine his own emotions. I am not sure, he said honestly. Think about it, Lisa said gently. When you talk with her, how do you feel? When she looks at you, what happens inside you? Jake closed his eyes and remembered his conversations with Queen Lyrelei, her curiosity about human emotions, her loneliness, the way she had asked him what happiness felt like, the way her whole face had changed when she smiled for the first time. I think, Jake said slowly, I think I might be falling in love with her too. Then you have to try the trials, Lisa said. Not for politics, not for Earth, for yourself and for her, even if it kills me, Jake asked. Love always involves risk, Lisa said. The question is whether she is worth the risk. Jake spent the rest of the day thinking. He walked through the Crystal City, watching the Zephyrians go about their daily lives. They moved with purpose but without joy. Everything was efficient, orderly, and cold. He thought about what Queen Lyrelei had told him about their society. Marriages arranged for politics. Emotions considered weaknesses. Personal choice not allowed. It sounded like a beautiful prison. As the sun began to set, Jake made his decision. He returned to the throne room where Queen Lyrelei and her court were waiting. The room fell silent as he walked to the center of the floor. I accept the trials, Jake announced. Some of the nobles looked disappointed. They had been hoping he would refuse and leave. Queen Lyrelei's face showed relief and terror at the same time. Very well, she said formally. The trials will begin tomorrow at dawn. May the gods have mercy on you, Jake Miller, because the trials will not. That night, Jake could not sleep. He stood by his window, looking out at the Crystal City and wondering if he would see another sunset. Somewhere in the palace, Queen Lyrelei was probably awake too, worried about what tomorrow would bring. Dr. Lisa Carter came to his room one last time. Are you sure about this? She asked. No, Jake said honestly, but I am sure that some things are worth fighting for. Maybe Queen Lyrelei is one of those things. Just remember, Lisa said, you are not just fighting for love. You are fighting to show the galaxy what humans are capable of. Win or lose, you will be representing all of humanity tomorrow. Jake nodded. No pressure at all. As dawn approached, Jake prepared for the trials that would either make him a king or kill him trying. Either way, the galaxy would never look at humans the same way again. Dawn came too quickly. Jake stood in the palace courtyard, surrounded by hundreds of Zephyrians who had come to watch the trials. News had spread across the galaxy, and representatives from many alien species were also present. Everyone wanted to see if a human could succeed where others had failed. Queen Lyrelei sat on a portable throne, her face carefully blank. But Jake could see the worry in her eyes. Her advisors stood nearby, some looking hopeful that Jake would fail, others appearing nervous about what his success might mean. The first trial begins, announced the elderly advisor who clearly disliked Jake. The trial of strength. You must defeat our greatest warrior in combat. A massive Zephyrian stepped forward. He was nearly 8 feet tall, with muscles that looked like they were carved from stone. In his hands he carried a weapon that looked like a cross between a sword and a club. I am Commander Kex, the giant said. I have never been defeated in combat. I will try to make your death quick, human. Jake was given a similar weapon, though it felt heavy and awkward in his hands. He had trained in combat, but nothing had prepared him for fighting someone this large and strong. The fight began immediately. Commander Kex attacked with devastating power, his weapon creating sparks when it hit the crystal ground where Jake had been standing a second before. Jake realized quickly that he could not match the Zephyrian's strength or reach, but Jake had something else: speed and creativity. While Commander Kex relied on power, Jake used agility. He dodged and rolled, staying just out of reach while looking for an opening. The crowd began to murmur. They had expected the human to be crushed immediately, but Jake was lasting longer than anyone thought possible. Commander Kex grew frustrated and began swinging wilder, putting more power behind his attacks but becoming less careful about his defense. Jake saw his chance. Instead of dodging the next attack, he stepped inside it, getting close enough to strike at Commander Kex's knee. The big warrior stumbled, off balance for just a moment. Jake used that moment to trip him completely, sending the giant crashing to the ground. Before Commander Kex could get up, Jake had his weapon pointed at the warrior's throat. "I yield," Commander Kex said, sounding surprised. "The human has won." The crowd was silent, shocked that Jake had succeeded. Queen Lyrayli smiled for the first time that day. The second trial, the advisor announced, clearly unhappy. The trial of wisdom. They led Jake to a room filled with ancient books and strange machines. In the center was a crystal sculpture that seemed to change shape as he looked at it. "This is the puzzle of infinite reflections," the advisor explained. "For 300 years, our greatest minds have tried to solve it. You have 1 hour." Jake studied the crystal sculpture carefully. It was beautiful but confusing. Every time he thought he understood its pattern, it seemed to change. Other Zephyrians had probably tried to solve it using pure logic and mathematical formulas. But Jake remembered something Queen Lyrayli had said about Zephyrian society. Everything was planned and controlled to prevent errors. Maybe the puzzle was not about finding the right answer, but about accepting that some things could not be controlled. Jake reached out and touched the crystal. Instead of trying to force it into a pattern, he let it change freely. As he did, he began to see the truth. The sculpture was not meant to be solved. It was meant to teach that beauty could exist in constant change, that not everything needed to be controlled or understood. "The puzzle is not broken," Jake announced. "It is working exactly as it should. The lesson is that trying to control everything makes you miss the beauty of natural change." The crystal sculpture suddenly glowed brighter and settled into a stable, beautiful form that no one had ever seen before. The Zephyrian scholars in the room looked amazed. "How did you know?" one of them asked. "Because I learned from someone very wise that freedom can be more valuable than control," Jake said. Looking at Queen Lyrayli, "The final trial," the advisor said, his voice now showing worry. "The trial of heart." This time they did not go to another room. Queen Lyrayli herself stood up from her throne. "This trial I must conduct myself," she said. "Jake Miller, you have proven you are strong and wise. But now you must prove that your feelings are real. Not just attraction to power or curiosity about aliens, but genuine love." Jake felt his heart racing. "How do I prove that, Your Majesty?" "By answering one question honestly, knowing that your answer will be heard by everyone here and broadcast across the galaxy," Queen Lyrayli said. "Knowing that your answer will affect not just us, but the relationship between all our peoples." The courtyard fell completely silent. Even the wind seemed to stop blowing. "Jake Miller," Queen Lyrayli said, her voice soft but clear, "do you love me as I am? An alien queen with responsibilities you cannot imagine, ruling a people you barely understand, facing a future full of difficulties and dangers? Or do you love the idea of me, the adventure, the political alliance, the chance to be part of something historic?" Jake looked into her dark eyes and saw everything he had come to care about. Her curiosity about emotions she had never felt, her loneliness in a position that isolated her from everyone around her, her courage in choosing love over safety, her willingness to change everything for the chance at happiness. "Your Majesty," Jake said, his voice carrying across the silent courtyard, "I love you for who you are, not because you are a queen, but because you are brave enough to ask what happiness feels like. Not because you are powerful, but because you are willing to be vulnerable. Not because marrying you would help my species, but because you have shown me what it means to choose love over fear." Queen Lyrayli's eyes filled with tears, the first tears anyone had ever seen a Zephyrian shed. "And I love you," she said. "Not because you are exotic or different, but because you have taught me that strength comes from caring about others, because you have shown me that true power is not the ability to control, but the ability to inspire." The crowd erupted. Some Zephyrians cheered, others looked shocked, and a few still seemed angry. The alien ambassadors were talking excitedly among themselves, but Jake barely noticed any of it. He walked to Queen Lyralee and took her hands in his. "Your Majesty," he said, "I accept your proposal, but not as your subject or consort. I propose we stand as equals, as partners representing our species' best qualities." This statement surprised everyone even more than the marriage proposal had. "Equal partners?" Queen Lyralee asked. "That is not how Zephyrian marriages work." "Then maybe it is time to create a new kind of marriage," Jake said. "One based on choice, respect, and love rather than duty and hierarchy." Queen Lyralee looked at her advisors, then at the crowd, then back at Jake. "You want to change 1,000 years of tradition?" "I want to start a new tradition," Jake said. "One that our children and their children can be proud of." Queen Lyralee smiled. A real, joyful smile that transformed her entire face. "Yes," she said. "Let us create something new together." The wedding ceremony 3 months later was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. It blended human and Zephyrian customs, but it also included new elements that neither species had tried before. Representatives from dozens of worlds attended, and many of them began talking about how they might apply these new ideas of equality and choice to their own societies. Jake and Queen Lyralee's marriage did more than unite two people. It started a wave of change that spread across the galaxy. Other species began questioning their own rigid traditions. Young Zephyrians started asking for the right to choose their own partners. Human diplomats found themselves welcomed as advisors on worlds that had never shown interest in human ideas before. But for Jake and Lyralee, the most important change was personal. They had found in each other not just love, but the courage to become better than they had ever imagined they could be, and when their first child was born 2 years later, a beautiful little girl with her mother's dark eyes and her father's curious smile, the galaxy celebrated the birth of a new kind of hope, a hope that differences could become strengths, that love could overcome fear, and that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is choose to trust someone with your heart. The alien queen's confession had indeed left everyone amazed. But what amazed them most was not that she had chosen to love a human, but that love itself had become a force for positive change throughout the stars.